Well, I really do try my best not to come back and do Jessica Tarlov segments every 5 seconds because I do want to have a diversity of content. But this one's too good and it went super viral and she's crushing it and I have to do a segment on it. She's the liberal Fox host on The Five, as we've talked a lot about. I need to lay the foundation so that you know what she's responding to. First, I have to show you this Hillary Clinton clip that the right wing went nuts about because she's talking about the MAGA cult, says something about deprogramming. I'll admit the way she words this, even though the essence of what she's saying in your personal lives, in dealing with MAGA cultists, the hardcore extremists, we're not talking about your average Republican voter, of course not, the hardcore extremists who buy into everything Trump says. The way that people such as that are going to get out of that thinking is by sort of cult-like deprogramming themselves and by their family and friends not going to a place to get it done. But Hillary Clinton did word it a little weird and said formal deprogramming, eek, and that blew up online. Even though I think what she's saying here is fine, it did sound a little freaky for the right-wingers, even though they also were dishonestly trying to distort what she was saying. So I'll show you this clip, then we'll show Jessica Tarlov just perfectly responding to all the reaction we've seen to this clip.
Very strong partisans in both parties in the past, and we had very bitter battles over all kinds of things, gun control and climate change and the economy and taxes. But there wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party as it is today. Mm-hmm. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
So again, you get the point she's making. You would need a cult member expert to sit down to understand exactly how people are believing some of these conspiracy theories relating to Trump, thinking he's still the president, the people I've talked to on the ground at Trump rallies, and he's behind the scenes in control of everything through the military, but Biden's to blame for inflation, but Trump's actually in control and Biden's dead and he's an actor, but somehow also Trump campaigning for president now makes sense, even though he's currently in his second term. Yes, that is a cult, okay? People believe in those things and every single word that Trump says, even when they contradict with one another. And to get out of that, you would need deprogramming, not at a facility, just somehow in your life, you do it, people who love you help with it. But someone who in these conspiracy theories is powerful in the know, like Hillary Clinton, of course, formal deprogramming, that's going to go viral in the wrong places of the internet. But what went viral in the correct places of the internet, I did not plan that segue, so fantastic, was Jessica Tarlov saying, you know what, I'm sick of this nonsense on the part of so many people within the right wing, pretending to be separate from the deprogramming comment. As you see the lower third chiron pointing to, they were also complaining about, Hillary Clinton and Biden, they're so divisive. They're calling all of the Republican Party cultists, which is never what they say. It's the extreme, as she stipulated specifically, and she was making a point about the difference between traditional GOP, today's GOP, and the controlling core of it being MAGA. But still, people will say, it's so horrible. Biden hates people in this country. How dare he ever use words like extremist to describe people who believe the election was stolen when there's no evidence of it. And he's saying they're a threat to democracy. That's so horrible. He's so awful. You think it's rude for Biden to say threat to democracy about people who support the guy who actually tried to and is currently being prosecuted for trying to overthrow our democratic process, but not divisive for the people on the right to say what they say about the left, what they say about Biden, what they say about anyone who supports Biden? Take a look at this. Go, Jessica.
But I really need everyone to spare me the faux outrage and the pearl clutching about this. little collection of things that Donald Trump and high-ranking Republicans call liberals on a daily basis: anarchists, anti-American, deranged, communists, corrupt, compromised, groomers and perverts, thugs and traitors. Now, she was explicit that she was talking about a subsection of the Republican Party the same way that Joe Biden is when he talks about these MAGA extremism. But you tell me, if the leader of the Democratic Party, so that would be Joe Biden, was facing 4 indictments with 91 felony counts, he had been found liable of sexually assaulting a woman and defaming her, that's E. Jean Carroll, guilty of fraud, sharing the nation's secrets, not only in the Mar-a-Lago indictment, but there was a report yesterday from ABC News that he had shared information about our nuclear submarine capacities with an Australian billionaire who's a member at Mar-a-Lago, who had then gone on and shared that with dozens of other people, ended up making a purchase, I think, of 3 subs. It included specifics up to how many nuclear warheads they carry and how close they can get to Russian subs without being detected. And then I told you, so all of that is happening, and he's shooting up in the polls. And when you see those interviews of Trump supporters outside of the rallies, they're like, none of this is true. It's the big lie. He won the election, et cetera. And you wouldn't say to me, you guys are in a cult? It's actually tame what Hillary Clinton was saying.
Jesse.
So good. She's had enough. So for what I'm about to say, I'm going to use a code word because YouTube sometimes takes issue with the pedo word if I say it in full. So I've been drinking, I actually have been, it's great for hydration, I guess. Pedialyte, the drink. So that's the word I'm gonna be using for pedo, all right? So I go to these Trump rallies and they realize I'm not on their side and they say, do you support Biden? And I said, I voted for him, I'm gonna vote for him again. I think he's done a bunch of good stuff. And they say, okay, you're a Pedialyte. What? The Democrats are the party of Pedialytes. So you're a Pedialyte. So you're calling me, I could have just used pedo now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't like that word. But you get it. You're calling me one of the worst terms that we have because I like the Inflation Reduction Act, the first major gun safety bill in decades, pulling out of America's longest war, the largest investment in green energy in history, long prescription drug costs, raising the minimum wage for federal government workers, Ketanji Brown Jackson being on the Supreme Court, the PACT Act, the Chips and Science Act, and a once-in-generation infrastructure law. And I'm a Pedialyte or groomer or or some of them say demonic. And then you're offended because Biden points out that Trump wanted to overthrow our democracy and you support that. And every single time goes, not all Republicans, not all Republicans, not all Republicans, not. And then still it's construed as all Republicans. Who's really being dishonest? And think about this, okay? I think you should try to, even if you don't agree with somebody, try to at least figure out where they might be putting together their little logical puzzle pieces. If you believe the election was legitimate, which it was, but let's say if you're a MAGA hardcore individual and you think the election was stolen, let's just pretend for a second that someone in good faith, because of all the evidence, but because they don't see the secret evidence that isn't being presented anywhere, believes the election of Joe Biden was legitimate. You can conceive of that being possible, correct? Okay. So if that's possible and someone actually believes that, then don't you think it would logically make sense and wouldn't it just be name calling to say someone who tried to, with no evidence, overthrow the election results? Now, it was so bad what he was doing, was so outside of our normal legal process that he's being prosecuted for it. That's a threat to democracy. Not to mention him calling for the termination of the Constitution and threatening his former top general and all these other things he's been doing. But just that by itself, in the indictments. And so for Biden to say anyone who just blindly supports this guy or just supports him, it's even worse if you're knowledgeable of what you try to do, then that is threatening our democracy, because now we have this whole portion of the Republican Party saying, if we don't win, it was stolen. We don't believe in our elections. And we want to try to go outside of the law to install people in power. Excuse me. Whoa. So you can understand how all those puzzle pieces get put together. It just so happens to be the factual series of events. But even if you don't believe that, you can understand that. So instantly jumping to, no, it's just name calling. They're just saying this because they hate every single Republican and it's all lies. It's all terrible. I am willing to grant you as a MAGA cultist, if I was speaking to someone, maybe I don't use that term, a MAGA Trump supporter, that you genuinely believe the election was stolen. I don't think Trump does. I don't think Tucker Carlson does or Jeanine Pirro, but I think you probably actually think the election was stolen. So you should be able to do the same. And then we don't need all this outrage of what you're being called if you can understand that logic. And again, all the evidence supports that position. So great job, Jessica Tarlov. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show and get a bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. And there's a link in the description.